Life doesn't always go how you want it to. Life also sometimes does go the way you want it to. But at the end of the day, life goes by, no matter how, and you're the only one to decide how you're gonna live it. Whether that be with someone who you thought would be the love of your life, or with people who you care about the most, no matter your flaws. Some people, on the other hand, decide to live in what we call Lalaland, a term that refers to someone who isn't really in touch with reality. Now you'll never guess, but there's this really cool movie called La La Land, and I hope to analyze that today. The movie won a whole bunch of awards, and for good reason. It's a very real depiction of love, confidence, hopelessness, wanting, and fulfillment. Or in other words, life. La La Land revolves around Sebastian and Mia. Sebastian sees modern jazz as an insult to what jazz is meant to be. He's someone who one day wants to open up a jazz bar and serve the good old fried chicken. Unfortunately, from what it seems, people don't really want the good old jazz, and this has led him to go off script in a couple of jobs. This leads to a lack of a career, and more importantly, a lack of money. The dude's flat broke. Mia is someone who aspires to become an actor, yet is unable to pick up a role. Seeing this, she becomes further motivated to succeed, leading to her choosing to make her own play. Now, I'm gonna go over the overarching narrative, and so I won't be going into details when it comes to the plot. I do very much recommend you go watch the movie before anything, so yeah, just a heads up. These two end up getting together, supporting each other in their own endeavors, but life ain't always that easy. Sebastian ends up receiving an offer to join a jazz band, which is good and all, but it's the type of jazz that he kinda hates. He can't get a job that aligns with his view on music, and so he resorts to this. Making money. Good money at that. Telling himself that new times are on the arise, and that he would need to grow out of his old mentality. While Sebastian goes around doing shows, Mia works on her play. She gets it done, performs it, and unfortunately, kinda bombs. And the most hurtful part of it is, Sebastian was busy and couldn't attend it. These two now, stuck in situations in which they aren't exactly happy with where their lives are at, decide to part ways for the time being. That is, until Sebastian gets wind of some good news. Someone who liked Mia's play just happened to be a casting director, and she wants Mia's audition. Sebastian, moving like hell to get this news to Mia, eventually does so. An argument caused a bit of a rift in their relationship, but that's not exactly of any concern to the guy right now. The good news eventually reestablishes the bond between the two, and they're happy as ever now, with Mia getting the role. That said, Mia needs to go to Paris to film. With this, we enter the final act, a sudden cut to 5 years later. Mia is married to someone that isn't Sebastian, and even has a kid. She's become the actor she always wanted to be, and she seems content with her life. Walking down the road, her husband finds an interesting looking bar. Mia takes a look, and lo and behold, it's a Seb's. That one bar Sebastian had always wanted to open. The couple heads in, and the two see each other, all this time later. And the man Sebastian plays it. Sebastian and Mia's theme, the song Mia heard when seeing Sebastian playing the piano at that one restaurant, bringing her back to that exact moment. Back to that time even. Mia envisions a life where she and Sebastian got together, and in this fantasy, these two are the ones to have a kid, living out their dreams. However, just as quickly as it sets in, it fades away. Mia wakes back up to reality and decides that it's time to go. But while leaving, she looks back one last time, and Sebastian looks back at her. They give each other one last smile, a smile that means a whole lot to the both of them, representing where they are in their lives. Sebastian seeing to his dream of opening a jazz bar, and Mia becoming the actor she always wanted to be. The fact that they couldn't have done it without one another, the fact that they aren't together, the fact that they're content with that. They both know that fate had plans for them to meet, to get into arguments, to split up, only to get back together, to fulfill their passions, to meet one last time as successful people. All this with just one simple smile, not one of gesture or pleasantry, one of nostalgic yet melancholy memories, one of genuine gratitude, and most importantly, one of acceptance. We don't know what will happen to each and every one of us, and there will be times that shit doesn't go our way, and there will be times that sacrifices need to be made. But in the end, We'll all be okay. I believe those smiles to be all the proof we need. Now, something else I wanted to talk about was an anime by the name Mob Psycho. For a brief introduction, this kid Mob has psychic powers tied to his emotions. They are incredibly strong, but a past incident has caused him to keep a lot of his emotions hidden for the most part. That said, the kid is strong, kind, and caring. He's aware of the feelings that one should have, the right things to care about, the right attitude toward life. He just often doesn't show it. Now, shit gets wild in this show. However, the best moments are of the heart-to-heart Mob has with the people around him. Said heart-to-hearts allows him to surround himself with reliable people. People who don't just see him for his psychic powers. People who see Mob for Mob. I said earlier that Mob has some really strong scenes in regards to him being aware of social standards. And that's because in my eyes, he's an incredibly emotionally mature person, despite being someone who shelters his emotions for other people's good. Yet, he struggles with his own emotions over everything else. When you get your heart broken, you can tell yourself that it's alright. You can tell yourself that there will be more to come. But it won't stop you from crying. You know that logically, there are more chances out there. But emotions are by their very nature illogical. You shouldn't care about this slight hiccup. You shouldn't long for someone who doesn't have any interest in you. But you do. That's what it means to be human. Someone else to take note of is Reagan. While Mob keeps his insecurities hidden behind a blank face, Reagan takes up on the opposite method of dealing with his flaws, lying to other people to try and at least have a good reputation, as to deem himself not a failure. Despite this, Reagan isn't exactly a bad person, demonstrated by his first interaction with Mob. Mob here is a young kid, seeking advice as he is having trouble adapting to his psychic powers. Reagan kinda tells him off in his head, but he has the kid sit down. They talk, and Reagan spits out some bullshit cookie-cutter advice. Mob is naive enough to believe all Reagan is saying, and Reagan is glad to have him out of the way. Then, something unexpected happens. Mob really does have psychic powers. Reagan almost immediately asks if Mob would like to work under him. Now, this at first obviously looks like a man trying to extort a young kid for his powers. But through the narration of Reagan, we see that it's more than that. He sees a kid who is trying to better himself, trying to get through his own problems, and Reagan can't help but admire that part of Mob. The next scene we have is Mob and this girl Emmy. Emmy loses a bet and is dared to become Mob's girlfriend. She obviously isn't into him, but she lost the bet, and she has no choice but to deceive him. The fucking piece of shit whore. Despite this, it puts Mob in a good mood. Sooner than later, Emmy reveals to Mob that she's been working on a novel. That said, she takes a look at Mob's reaction, and she thinks he doesn't care too much about it. His face is quite blank, and so of course she would think this. Right after this, she reveals to Mob that this has all been a lie, that this whole dating thing was because she lost a bet, and that she's sorry for lying to him, even mentioning that she sometimes wonders if Mob even has feelings. And so, their relationship comes to an end. Mob reflects on all they went through and sits there, with the same old blank face he's always had. He gets up and stumbles upon Emmy again, with her group of piece of shit friends that put her up to this whole dating thing in the first place. They rip up her novel, joking around at how lame it is. Emmy, hurt by this, still decides to go along with it, appeasing the crowd, if you will. That's when Mob shows up and tells him to knock it off. He knows the value of that novel. He knows that she really did care for the stuff she wrote, and if they deem it trash, then he'll take up the ripped up pieces. He knows its value, and doesn't want the heartfelt emotions put into this writing to go to waste, and so picks up the pieces, one by one. Emmy joins him, finally seeing Mob as more than just some lame dork she got paired with, but as a genuine person that knows what it means to care. Something I wanted to mention here is that when Mob picks up the pieces of paper, he initially does so with his hands. Not with his powers, which could easily reassemble the papers, but his hands. Things like this need to be done with authenticity. In my opinion, this is more than just keeping his powers a secret from the people around him. This is about him seeing the shreds of paper as tarnished pieces of an important work done by Emmy. She was genuine in writing this novel, and so he must respond in a genuine fashion. Emmy joins in, and Mob does eventually show off his powers, and of course, this is because the wind took away the scraps they collected, but this is more than that. This is Mob showing Emmy a true side to himself. She showed him her work, a genuine part of her, and so Mob responds accordingly. Another moment in which Mob shows off his compassionate side is when Reagan's lying eventually catches up to him. He finally makes headlines, but for all the wrong reasons, with people calling him a fraud, everyone turning their backs towards him, with even his mother indirectly telling him to grow up. During a press conference, Reagan really is out of options. After trying to reassemble his shattered image, eventually, the truth has got to come out. He looks back on his life up until this point, looking at how he quit his job and took on this whole exorcist thing on a whim. And right when he was about to maybe quit the gig, Mob shows up, inspiring him to continue this path. But in hindsight, he takes an objective look at who he is. A con, someone who bullshitted Mob into working for him. Someone who maybe even held back the kid from developing as a person. And despite being in front of a whole crowd of people that see this guy as a fraud and want answers, he says to Mob, "You've grown up so much, haven't you?" Seeing his actions for what they are, this is the last thing he intends to say to the kid. Mob has done wonders to improve himself, unlike Reagan over here. And so, no longer will he be that burden. Just as those words leave his mouth, shit gets wild. Things start flying, and everyone gets scared. Reagan passes all of this off in a nonchalant manner, not telling anyone that he's doing it, but not denying it either. He says and does this, but it's not like his outlook has changed at all because of that. He still does think of himself as a piece of shit. And as he walks home, he sees Mob, and asks him if he knew what he was this whole time. Reagan looks down, with the idea that he's a piece of shit now reinforced by the one who he's been with all this time. The kid who he's been quote-unquote helping. He looks down, but not before long. Mob finishes his sentence with a good person. Reagan may not be a great guy in terms of societal standards, but to Mob, he really is someone to look up to. Reagan never gave any advice that was wrong per se. It may have been cookie-cutter advice, but he cares for the kid. Mob knows this, and it's about time Reagan did too. This is like one of the best scenes in the show, but not the best, because the ending to this series is the best. Tsubomi, the person Mob has a crush on, is leaving, and it's time for everyone to get their confessions out. This includes Mob, who gets her a bouquet of flowers. However, after saving a kid from an oncoming vehicle, he gets struck and is knocked unconscious. Soon later, his powers take a hold of him, and he starts walking toward the place he planned to confess to Tsubomi. Just not as himself, tearing down anything and anyone in his path. We see a whole bunch of people try and stop him. His friends, his brother, people who were once his enemies, but it's to no avail. That is until the big man Reagan steps up, and let me tell you, his charge toward Mob is epic as fuck. Reagan has recently come to terms with the fact that he isn't that guy. He isn't made out of what Mob is. He's just a regular guy. That said, he still goes at it, trying to save Mob from himself. This is where we finally see Reagan change as a character. He sees a kid struggling, and unlike his usual self, he steps into harm's way to try and help him. He's never been one to try anything too reckless, as it's a pain in the ass. But for once, whether this is because of a conscious decision based on his time with Mob, or the unconscious longing to be like Mob, he takes that step. He chases Mob with all his might. Despite almost dying a couple of times, he does finally get there. And here, we see Reagan finally admit it. The biggest lie throughout his time with Mob. He admits that he doesn't know shit about espers and their abilities. He's just a guy who's been bullshitting this whole time. Getting that off his chest, Mob finally snaps back to reality. It's alright to admit your flaws. Mob, seeing Reagan reveal everything he once wished to hide, looks at himself and this psychic power that's taken a hold of him. The thing he's been trying to suppress throughout his life. He accepts it, knowing that it's a part of him too. Reagan helps Mob become himself, and Mob helps Reagan take the first step and becoming a more grounded human being. After all this, Mob goes out to ask out Tsubomi, who is still waiting there for Mob, by the way. A keeper if I ever saw one, but Mob doesn't have it go the way he wants. Yeah, no, she ended up rejecting, and honestly, we all could have saw this coming from a mile away. But Mob comes back nonetheless, proud of himself that he was able to ask her out, and sad at the fact that he got rejected. He got to ask her out as himself, not a blank slate that he paints onto his face. For the first time, we get to see his raw, unfiltered emotions, finally doing more than just holding a still face while tears leak out, and Reagan is there to comfort him through this tough time. Mob has always had Tsubomi on a pedestal. His crush has been the reason he's been trying to improve all this time, joining the body improvement club, trying to become more charismatic, but with this, he knows that it won't work out anyways. With this new outlook, he can now better himself for nothing but himself. Not for her, but for him. Cut to later, and we see everyone doing well. Cut again to Reagan's agency, and we see the gang all there, waiting on him, for a surprise even. This being on its birthday is real cool and all, cause from what we can tell, all that shit about him being a fraud happened on his last one. That last scene of Mob laughing has honestly got to be one of the most rewarding things I've ever seen in a show. Mob finally gets to be normal like everybody else. He finally gets to be himself. Mob Psycho is a show about a young boy who, despite his circumstances, tries his best to come to terms with himself. It's okay to have flaws. The important thing is that we accept them, work on them to become a better person, one small step at a time. These two pieces of work are honestly great depictions of life. In La La Land, we learn that life doesn't always go the way you want it to. Things happen, but it's for a reason. We get to where we are because of what happened. Living life means to appreciate said moments and memories for what they are, stepping stones to our future. On the other hand, Mob Psycho takes us through a journey of self-acceptance. Despite all the psychic fights and the big explosions, it's an incredibly relatable show. We all have flaws, but at some point in time, we need to accept them. We are who we are, and we can't change that. That said, we all have the capabilities to progress toward becoming a better person. Whether that be in the form of working out or admitting your faults, what matters is that we all take that first step, no matter how small. That's about all I gotta say, so with that said, I'll see you ugly fat fucks later.